Chris.
Hey, Ike.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's an Adam Mattera day. It's always a good day.
That's right.
How you been?
I've been good.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, on your People Choice Podcast nomination.
Surprising.
Yeah,
Surprising.
that's amazing.
Will we win? Probably not.
But tell everyone the criteria and why it's such an honor.
Yeah, it's the 19th annual People's Choice Podcast Awards, and they send it out. Millions of people vote, and they select 20,000 out of those millions that will vote. They will listen to the episodes and then vote, and they have till September 6th. And then the award ceremony is the end of September, which happens to be Ty's birthday.
Oh wow, that's
a loser.
That's the angel there watching over you.
Yeah, so it was an honor. So I'm very happy that we were nominated, and thanks, you're a part of that.
Yeah, but you guys, in case I know a lot of the Sheena Easton fans tune in specifically to that, I'm hoping they catch up and they listen to the other episodes because they really will love them. They're just so funny, you and Tim, and the guests that you have are amazing. And you have some real iconic music guests too.
Yeah.
That's always a cool.
We had some like Trans Jolie. We had Michael J, who worked with on Sheena, and Adam worked with him as well. And
right.
But we even did Carol Eda White, who played Rosie Greenbaum on Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, that's cool.
And I just reposted it because it really was a great episode.
Was she the one that hid the Fazio?
Yeah. We even redid a scene with her. And I was Shirley,
awesome.
Tim was Laverne, and it was fabulous. You have to catch it. I reposted it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. She had a great heart, great spirit, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm happy that we were nominated. We'll see if we win.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And now here we are. Sheena Easton again. This is what connected you and I.
Yes.
And let's just get into it. Let's get the show started, right? So first, the show is sponsored by Uberlube, our fantastic sponsor, Uberlube.com, where their motto is, feeling is everything. I could have used this in Vegas. Anyway, Uberlube is great. They sponsor 50 Shades of Gay. Go to Uberlube.com. Check out all their products. They are so amazing and so supportive of us. What's next? We can be seen on riptv.live every Wednesday. They air our YouTube videos on their website, on Instagram, and on YouTube as well. So that's kind of fun. They do it live so people can interact. And if you have any questions you want to send to Dr. Tim or Dr. Ike, you could send to facebook.com at Loose Lips the Podcast. Just shoot us a DM, or ikeavellievents@hotmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at Loose Lips the Podcast. I'm moving really fast here because I'm so excited about our guest.
Yes. And our guest today is returning for the 9th time to discuss the latest release of the Cherry Red RT campaign, the vinyl of Sheena Easton's 1985's Do You. It includes the long-lost original full-length versions of tracks.
Plus, also released yesterday, is the Double Deluxe CD, expanded with 21 bonus tracks, 14 of which have been previously unreleased. Oh my God.
Amazing.
So please welcome to the stage our friend of the show, Adam Mattera.
Hi. Great to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
Are you kidding me?
Your award-nominated show.
I cannot believe it. Terrible. By the People's Choice. They must really love me, or they hate me.
And I can't believe this is the 9th time. That's shocking as well, isn't it?
9 times. Your first appearance was in 2021.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it really has been that long that we've been doing the campaign's been a long campaign.
Yeah, I think since
Adam, your Alec Baldwin, has he been on your show more than any other guest, or is there someone out there that he's in competition with? Oh, okay.
I plead the fifth. No, Adam is number 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, number 1. We've had returning guests, but Adam is the top of the list. And I have to tell you, a lot of the episodes are the most watched internationally, which is great.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've
Power of Sheena.
broken some records.
Power of Miss Easton.
Of course, but it's a power of you, Adam. You're the one that brings us here.
Cool.
And now, I think the last time we spoke, you've had a couple of releases prior to this one. Private Heaven, right?
Private Heaven, yeah, came out on the 40th anniversary vinyl.
Yep.
Which we put out as a double vinyl, yeah, because we'd never redone that one. Kind of got, because that was the first album that was done in the series.
Yes,
there it is with the gatefold, yeah.
Oh,
because we'd done that, we hadn't in the sequence of the vinyls. That one was the next, and it made sense to do as a double, and it made sense to also, since I'd done the double CD release a couple of years earlier, I'd found more tracks.
Yes, and
so there were 3 unreleased mixes that had never come out that are on that vinyl. They're not on the CD, different versions.
And then the Spanish album, correct?
Yes. Did we not talk? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Spanish album came up.
I think, Chris, you have that?
Of course I have that.
Yes.
There it is. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce the title because I feel
Toda me recuerda a ti.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't even know if I did it good, but I don't know. But yeah, that was released. So many great things coming up. And then, I mean, we're going to dive right into some of the questions too, as we're talking about the releases. So someone did ask it. Petros from London wanted to know if the Spanish album will be released on CD.
Yes, it will.
Okay, perfect.
It will come out on CD eventually, yeah. But
Great.
Not right now.
Okay, got that down. So let's talk about the latest release yesterday. Do you? You got it, Chris? Isn't that? I'm telling you, the artwork, I cannot believe the pictures. And some of them, I'm like, all right, why weren't these the original covers, like of the album?
Sure. And why weren't some of those really? I mean, though that session in particular that we've used on the on the vinyl wasn't really seen that much, really.
Right.
That session wasn't. I mean, one of the sessions was using the cover of Jimmy Mac.
Yeah. Right.
But really, the others weren't seen particularly, as far as I'm aware. So there was a whole, they did loads of great sessions with her.
Yeah, I feel like these pictures, and of course I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of these sessions were after that cover photo session. So I feel like these were more, I don't know, publicity photos, perhaps for promotional photos for single releases, future single releases, but I don't know that these were taken before, because the photo sessions almost looked like they were around the time of Live Aid, her Live Aid appearance, which was the summer of '85.
In the same outfit.
Yes. Yeah, sure. There were only a few months. Yeah, Philip Dixon's the photographer for the album shoot.
Right.
And the photographer, I can't remember the photographer that did those black and white shots. It's the same photographer, I believe, that did the color shot that we used inside. That's the same photographer. I can't remember the name right now. But the one we used in the sleeve. So that look was part of the same time. But in terms of exactly when they were taken, but it was all within a few. It wasn't like a huge. It was all around about the same time.
Yeah.
But clearly, and of course, the look was quite. Sheena's new look was quite. As I was going back through the archives and reading the press coverage at the time. Particularly, there was some quote in one of the British press were always a bit snide about Sheena.
Yeah,
of course.
After the initial, loving her for the first couple of years when she was, the young ingenue.
Yes.
Then when she disappeared to America and became famous in America, there was a sort of basically they turned. They were a bit against her.
They disengaged. Yeah.
And so when she came out with that new look, it was kind of, she's done this scruffy Madonna wannabe look. Although it doesn't really look anything like Madonna, but but there was different. Yeah.
She premiered that look, I think, at the Grammys, right?
No, the look at the Grammys was the spiky hair for
but it was
the swear period. I think the premiere for the rat tail and it was an interesting. I feel like during, it appeared, and I understand why the British press was looking at it that way. We've talked about this before. America didn't know really about Sheena prior to the public image of her, whereas the UK were taken from the girl next door, the young girl with the long hair, and this metamorphosis to this pop star. And so anything after that seemed and could appear as contrived. So this was kind of like, it was a weird thing when you look at the imaging. The hair was almost like an attempt to capture the craze of Cyndi Lauper, Amy Mann, with the short on the one side and the long on the other side, and the tail, and then even the outfits. There was a little bit of a Madonna thing with a lot of the bracelets,
the beads,
and and then in the promotional appearances, the lingerie underneath the trench coat.
It was very Prince, wasn't it? Very
a little like Prince and Madonna. Madonna was into the lingerie at that time, was wearing a lot of that. So it could appear to be something that was contrived, but everyone was doing that. Everyone was definitely looking at how to stand out amongst the crowd, and so that was her attempt at that.
Sure. And I think as well, that, I mean, Christopher Neal talked a bit about this when I was interviewing him for the first album, that people get very much stuck with an idea of who you are. So the first way they meet you is how you are and how they often want you to stay. So if she comes out as the ballad singer or the this singer or the kind of frothy pop, then as soon as she does something different, which she was more than capable of from the very beginning, even that very first album, there was tracks like Prisoner, that were rock, really rocky. She could always do many different facets to what she did musically. But the kind of music you make, the kind of image, people sometimes want you to stick in one thing. And she was doing naturally at that time. She's not going to still be wearing the kind of jumpsuits that she wore in 1980. And she was just moving with the times and trying different things. And some were maybe more successful than others, and some people liked more than others. But I think that I personally really liked the look for Do You, I must say.
I hated the cover.
I didn't like the cover.
It was just an awful look for her. I thought everything from the jeans, I just didn't. There was nothing about it. The face, she looked very sickly. I don't know. It almost looked like a heroin addict.
Well, you know what it was? She was so made up, the makeup and the flash on all the first 4 albums, right? Was it 4 prior to that? Well, except for Madness, Money, and Music. But when you look at You Could Have Been With Me and, Private Heaven, and then you went right from a Private Heaven to, this, I was and then you look at the photos that you included in the box set and here, and you're like, my God, why did they make those choices? Again, I know it's you said that there was a gap in between, but it wasn't that much of a gap. This is fabulous.
There were definitely much, I think, much more impactful shots they did around the show, say. Like the one on the inner sleeve, or that one, that session, that's much.
That was my favorite. And there's a black and white photo session from this that I thought would have been perfect for even the cover you did for the singles release. That would have been a great cover for Do You.
Oh, that would have been a great cover. Yeah. Absolutely. So they did use one of those shots from that session, a black and white one, for the best of Sheena Easton, which came out a year ago.
Yeah, that's my favorite picture of all of those. I thought, and in black and white, I thought it was perfect. Yeah.
Now, is this the first time since you started the project that you've had a double release on the same day? Vinyl and CD.
No, actually isn't, because we did that for Madness, Money, and Music.
Ah.
Yeah.
Got it. But these are 2 different.
Oh, with different kind of visuals. No, yes, that's the first time we've done it with 2 different looks, because it's the vinyl is not the original vinyl. It's not reproducing the original vinyl. To me, it made sense to give it a different visual identity, because in fact, it's not like a tiny new album, but it's like the long version.
Right.
Of course, one of the questions that I imagine will come up, maybe I'm preempting a question, but because Shall I answer this? I'm answering a question that I'm just
Go ahead. It's okay.
basically about the unedited song. So
Yes.
we found, I think this came up when we were talked about this at an earlier stage. We talked about Do You. At that point, I hadn't found these. So there was a long period, this ongoing period of discovery and going through the vaults and finding different sessions and mixes and blah and blah and blah. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of tapes, and some are marked correctly, some are marked vaguely, and you can't possibly get every single tape in the vaults in LA and in where's the other one? There's some that are held outside New York. I can't remember what the name of the place is. There's some in London. There are various places where different EMI vaults from Sheena sessions are kept, and to get them all transferred digitally it's just never going to happen. It'd be outrageous. You'd be paying tens of thousands of. It's just never going to be. And the time it would take and blah, blah, blah. So you have to make some informed decision. Anyway, cut a long story short, I came across in one of my deep dives into the vault, one tape that had some of these longer versions. And I was like, oh my God, there are longer uncut versions. I had no idea. It's never been referred to anywhere. But obviously when they cut the original sessions, they cut longer tracks. Some a lot longer. I think Don't Turn Your Back is probably the longest. It's like
over
2
7
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah. Some aren't that much longer. But most of them are, considerably longer. And clearly what must have happened is they were edited down for the vinyl, because the vinyl was the prime format of the day.
Right.
So you wanted stuff to fit on the vinyl. And the same version that went on the vinyl in 1985, were there CDs in 85?
Yes.
Yeah, it just started coming out. Yeah.
Yep. That was my first CD I got, was Do You.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Well, I guess they just did one version. They put on CD and on the vinyl, with the vinyl being the primary format at the time. So they had to edit it down. So when these were found and they were approved by Sheena and all the various parties that had to approve them, that we could release them. Obviously, we wanted to. This made sense to do a 2 CD then, because then we can include them more. But then for the vinyl version, the choice was: do we either put out the original album as is, 10 tracks, or put a version on vinyl? So for it to fit on one disc, it couldn't all fit for the same reasons it couldn't all fit in 1985. Yeah. So that's why there are only 8 tracks on
Got it.
vinyl.
But you wisely chose the 8 tracks that had the most to offer in terms of additional ad libs or musical sections.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. Well, Can't Wait Till Tomorrow
It's not on here.
Already released.
Was the only one
Yeah.
of the long versions that was ever released, but it was called the dance mix.
Yes.
Yeah, even though there was nothing different about the mix.
Even though it was nothing different, yeah, and that's what. So it's like, okay, this makes sense now. So that's what happened was they put that on the B side of the 12-inch of Do It for Love. And the other one that I omitted from the vinyl is Young Lions. But you couldn't include everything, so you had
and Young Lions just had the extended background vocals, the male background vocals at the end, so there was no real. That's what I mean. There was nothing really missing from that one besides a little extended instrumentation and background vocals at the end of the song. So that was a great choice that you had that had some substance to them.
And I think in the terms of the flow of it being an 8-track album, it kind of, you want to keep like a song like Kisses on there. You want to. I couldn't really think of which. Anyway, that's how it ended up being, and that's why it's 8 tracks. If anyone was it, we could have done a double vinyl, I suppose, but there was a discussion about that. The thing with double vinyl is, of course, it's a lot more expensive.
Right.
And so you have to make a choice between, like, okay, so you do a double vinyl, then less people don't want to buy it because it's double, it's going to price. So which is it worth doing that? I don't know. And anyway, that was it. So I think the track.
So from what you mentioned, you've already had the tracks that you had, and then you found the bonus ones. What, when you were doing it, or in between?
I remember when at some point in the last year,
Wow.
I came across one tape that had some bonus ones, and then it didn't have all of them. It had like maybe 3,
Okay.
and then I had to go back and try and find all the others to get the full set of the full length unedited ones. Interestingly, and you can tell by when you look on the logs about when things were recorded and when things. So you start looking at the tapes and you start figuring out, okay, how they've been categorized and stuff like that, and where they're kept. And so, if one is in a certain place and it's got a certain catalog number and it was cataloged at a certain time, it's likely the other ones are going to be there with it or around it or something. And they were. Amongst them, there was for "Do It for Love," interestingly, which is why when you look at the sequencing on the uncut sessions, the "Do It for Love" has something called break mix, because that's what it was named, and that's the one that was recorded. So there is no longer version of "Do It for Love" that was, but there was this alternate mix that was done at the same time and included in that set of uncut things. So it kind of belongs there, and it's slightly different. It's a bit more funky, I think.
Yeah, I love that, and I can't wait to hear it. And Chris, I know you already had a listen.
Yeah, I loved it. And the interesting for me, obviously, it's always great to hear any new ad libs that Sheena did, and then it's interesting to see, I wish they had kept that ad lib in, and instead of this one. Or I have to say, I think for the most part, they did the right choices in terms of the final edits.
Right.
And I don't know if you noticed this, Adam, but the only song, all of the unedited versions are a little mixed slightly differently than the album versions. The album versions have just a little bit more of like a gloss. They're pretty similar, but there's just a little extra on the album mixes, except for Kisses. The mix on Kisses is much different than the mix on the album. The vocal is way up in the mix. There's no reverb in the shadows in the moonlit dreaminess. Yeah. There's no reverb there on the unedited version. I actually prefer the unedited version mix to the album mix. So, and that's the only one that really I hear a real big difference in the mix. And it's interesting. I don't know if that was because they were going to consider it for a single release, or if that was the original idea for the album mix, and then they changed it when they were doing the final edits. But I really do prefer that one. It's the vocals up front. It just sounds. I think it just sounds better.
Clear. Yeah, I love that.
Wow. Yeah. I really like the longer version of Magic of Love.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Oh, yeah.
Forever, because it's just got such a groove, and it's great to hear that longer version with the ad-libs. Likewise, Don't Turn Your Back. That really
Don't Turn Your Back is amazing. And Ike, when you hear that, the new ad-lib, it almost makes you wish they had done a remix, because she's doing some things with the ad-libs that would lend themselves perfectly to what was very common back then with those stop beats and edits. And she does a lot of like little phrasing. She plays around with the "Don't turn your back."
I always said that should have been the first single. I don't know why that was just my choice. I'm just looking at this. This could have been definitely the single, the album choice. I don't know. The first song should have been "Don't Turn Your Back."
And you know who wrote it, which I didn't know, Ike, until this liner notes. The amazing job that Adam always does with the liner notes. Junior, Mama used to say,
Are you kidding?
Time, young man. Yeah,
I love that.
He wrote that song.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, Junior was one of the people I spoke to. Not as many of the songwriters for the album as I could get hold of, I spoke to. And Junior is such a nice guy. Actually, he's fantastic. And what was really interesting about that was he was asked by there's two co-wrote there's two brothers also, the Gaynor brothers, who wrote it with. Yeah. And one of them, which was it Martin? can't remember his name. One of the brothers, Mel Gaynor. He had known Nile, and so when the word was out that Nile was doing a album with Sheena, he found out and was asked to do a track. He worked at the track. Him and his brother did this track which then approached Junior to come in and do the melody and write the lyrics with them, and blah blah, which turned into "Don't Turn Your Back." But Junior was saying that he knew of Sheena as 9 to 5,
right,
as a lot of people did, and wasn't really aware of. And it was only when he was asked to do the record that he started like catching up with what Sheena had been doing and heard Sugar Walls and things. Like, oh my God, this is what. And so that's why he really wanted to make a song. They wanted to create a song that had that real attitude to it, and that, of course, "Don't Turn Your Back" is totally that. And wanted to do something really assertive and powerful, and that's why they came with that song. And when they heard the mix, when the three of the songwriters got the track back from Nile and heard the final version, they were all completely blown away and all felt, oh my God, I hope this is going to be a single. It feels like it's going to be a single, like you say.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether maybe one of the reasons the label discarded that as it didn't was because of the lack of success of, say, Swear out previously, and so Swear didn't really work for whatever reason. They didn't promote it enough, maybe they didn't, but you could almost, and they're like, we're not going to follow one track like that with something else in a similar area. We're going to go a different direction.
Yeah, you're right. It was more of a rock funk track, so I could see that.
But it would have worked because Duran Duran. When did Duran Duran and Nile Rodgers work together? Was it 85?
83 they first worked together.
Right, and they were doing, something that was outside of the box. Niles was anyway. I mean, they were very poppin', and I forget the name of the song that he did with them.
Wild Boys.
Yes, that was.
And the remix of the Reflex.
Reflex, yeah.
Wild Boys.
Yeah, I think it just was, again, it's always, you wish you had a time machine and you could see, I feel like "Do It for Love," it's, for me, it's one of the weakest songs on the album. And this album is great, so that says a lot. It's just, people wish "Do It for Love" would be one of their weakest songs on an album, because it's a strong song, but it's just not, when you compare it to me, to other songs, it's just not, I don't know, it just kind of stays in this one place that I think is just, not very exciting. It wasn't, but I understand where they were coming from. The groove, it was one of the last songs recorded. And because I remember hearing an interview with Sheena where she said that Nile found the song. I think it was the last song recorded for the album. And she got this demo, and she was in the airport, and she found herself singing the chorus, and she's like, "What song is that?" And then she realized it was the demo that Nile had just given her, and she said that's usually an indication that it's a hit, when it's stuck in your brain and you're singing the song. So, and then Nile produced it almost like a replica of Into the Groove. The bass line was a little similar, and that vocal effect is very similar. That's almost the same vocal effect that Madonna uses on that song with the reverb on.
Yeah, the thing I believe, when I heard, we all got our information from Billboard magazine, that's how I knew Sheena was coming out with a new album and Nile Rodgers was producing it. And I think in my head, coming off of Like a Virgin, I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be hit after hit. They're going to be catchy. I'm being honest, it wasn't my favorite album, right? But none of it sounded like anything Madonna would have did with Niles at all. So it was basically, you could tell it was all Sheena based. Like it was tailored for her. But again, "Do It for Love," I agree with you, Chris. I was like, But the first time I heard the song, because all the major pop stations weren't playing it, I first heard it on an R&B station. And as soon as I heard the "Do You," I was like, oh my God, that's Sheena. And they were playing it on BLS here in New York.
Oh wow! Because it didn't actually chart on R&B. I was reading that in the Billboard.
It did chart on the R&B.
Yeah, it did chart, but it didn't get to the top 40 on the R&B chart.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah, it wasn't like a major R&B hit.
Yeah.
Which you would imagine it would have been, because obviously following Sugar Walls,
right?
You know, she had a kind of
mm-hmm.
base there, potential base there. When I spoke to Adele Bataille, who's one of the writers of that
mm-hmm.
track, who herself, people from the 80s might remember her. She was a great singer. She was a woman that sang on, do you remember Hyperactive by
mm-hmm.
Thomas Dolby?
Yep.
That's her.
Yeah. She did crazy vocal, yeah.
Yeah, amazing singer. She also was on a big hit with Jelly Bean. Big hit in Britain anyway, called Just a Dream. Anyway, I spoke to her, New York-based singer, and she wrote it with another woman there called Maz Kessler, and she said, because often when you speak to songwriters, they often tell you like, oh, our demo, you know, they kept everything from our demo. She actually said it was very different from the demo, what they did, what Nile did with the song, and felt that the demo was better, was more catchy. So I don't know, I've not heard the demo.
Interesting, because I swore I heard, I heard an interview with Regina, who did the demo vocal.
Yes.
Said that
she kept it.
Sheena kind of kept
the
she did in terms of the vocal performance.
Yeah.
Or maybe the production was much different than
than
the approach. Yeah, so it's interesting. Interestingly, the same songwriters and Regina had a big hit about a year later with Baby Love.
Yes. Oh my God, I love Regina.
So yeah, wasn't she great? Yeah, people.
Yeah, great album too. Sentiment of Love, and I
mean, that sounded like a track from Madonna's first album.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think that there could have been a stronger choice of single, and I do feel that if they had got the right lead single, that the fortunes of the album would have
changed. I agree, and I think the first single should have been "Don't Break My Heart."
Yeah,
I thought that sounded just like a radio song. It was, and of all the songs, because I think Ike's right, there was definitely not, besides, in my opinion, besides "Do It for Love," which I think was trying to capture a little bit of Madonna's sound. I think the rest of the album was definitely not trying to do that, which I think was a good move.
Yeah.
And there were little sections that I could hear a little bit of Madonna influence, which every pop artist at that time was being, influenced by Madonna, I think, especially female pop artists. One was the beat on
Can't Wait,
Don't Break My Heart, because I thought that was very similar to the Dress You Up beat. And then there was in the Kisses section, there's a section in the middle. I think it's not the bridge, but it's just this interesting pre-chorus section where I will drive you wild with my kisses. I will drive you wild and I will drive you wild. And then she does this little dip into a low note that reminded me of something Madonna did on Angel. So there were little things that I heard, but I also think but I do think without a doubt that single would have been the perfect lead single for that album, because it was a good mixture of what Sheena had done the album before with what she was trying to do with this album. But the other thing that was, I think, perhaps having an impact was they made this decision, which you talked about in your liner notes, Adam. You found an interview, I never saw one before, where Sheena was talking about how they made the decision to exploit her mid and low range on this album. And so typically a Sheena Easton album would have had all of these songs placed in a section of her voice that would have been higher. Mm-hmm. So the notes of all the songs would have been, the keys would have all been lifted higher so that she could exploit her upper register. And I think that was confusing for some people. I know as a 15-year-old fan at the time, Ike was, I think, maybe 35 at the time, but as a 15-year-old,
by a year,
I remember being confused, being like, what happened? Like, she still sounded great, but like, what happened with her voice? Something's changed with her voice. Because I didn't understand that. Oh, that was a conscious decision. And now, as an adult, listening to the album, it's one of the reasons why I love this album, because it's such a different sound for her. And it's like, if you place, besides maybe Sugar Walls and Love and Affection, if you listen to A Private Heaven and then you listen to Do You, it sounds almost like a different artist. It was.
I remember you saying that. I pointed that out previously about the register, and then I found those various interviews where she specifically talked about wanting to explore that part of her voice and Nile encouraging it and blah blah blah. But at the time, I don't remember. I remember thinking this is a different sound, but I wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, that's being able to pinpoint what it was and thinking about it. But I didn't think like, oh, it feels like a different person. It all felt like it's still Sheena, but it is a very different. It is a different. I mean, that aspect of it, the fact it was recorded in New York, all her previous albums have been done either in the UK or West Coast, so that there were lots of different things. I think, in a way, though, has a much more urban feel than any other record she had done previously. But I also think it's probably one of the most cohesive albums. Definitely the Christopher Neal albums had a unified sound. Range. But particularly Mouths, Money and Music, which is fantastic. But of the albums that she'd done in America up to that point, I think that Do You is actually the best as a whole. Personally, I think it sits together as a really great collection of songs. I mean, sure, some are a little bit stronger than others, and some would have been better singles than others. But I think it's a real winner, that album.
I agree. I think it's definitely in my top 3 of her albums, and I think it's, again, I don't know that I would have said that back in the 80s, but I think upon reflection now, I do. I think it's just, stellar. I think from the production to the arrangements and interestingly enough, when I force people, I tie them up and I force them to listen to Sheena Easton, a lot of people, this is their favorite of her albums. Like, they love the way she sounds and they love the arrangements. And I think you're right. They, the albums prior, even though they did still also have the same producer, I think they were so varied. They had such different flavors that even though they worked as an album and they were cohesive, this one is a little more consistent. And let me ask a question to you two. What would be your top 4 singles in order? What do you think would be the perfect single order for success for this album? I'll tell you mine just so you
let's see if we agree.
All right. Okay. So my first single would have been Don't Break My Heart. My second single would have been Magic of Love, because I think that the record company was making a wrong move from A Private Heaven on with not chasing or keeping her adult contemporary base. I think they were trying so hard to move away from that. And if you look at all the superstars, they all catered to an adult contemporary base. They had up-tempo songs followed by a ballad. And I think that was a wrong move for EMI to do. But so I would have done Magic of Love as the second single. The third single, I would have Can't Wait Till Tomorrow. And then the fourth single would have been When the Lightning Strikes Again.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Okay, Adam, you go.
Okay, well, hearing your reasons, it's made me slightly change. I mean, I do think, and I think actually saying that in the liner notes that Don't Break My Heart would have made a great first single. I agree. And it would obviously need to be a slight edit, I think, probably a slightly different edit or mix, maybe. But yeah, it's so catchy, it's so punchy. I definitely think, like you were saying, Magic of Love to me is a hit. I would have said that would be the third single, because the ballad usually comes third. But with your logic totally makes sense to me. Get it out sooner and cater to that. I just think it's such a great record. So yeah, let's do number 2, Magic of Love. I think Money Back Guarantee is a great track. So I'm going to go for that for my third single. And I'm going to go for... well, I think Don't Turn Your Back, but they kind of failed. They couldn't make swear work, so maybe the same thing would have happened to Don't Turn Your Back. So maybe a better fourth single might have been Kisses. I love Kisses. It seems like it just feels like a drive time classic. You know what I mean? Like
it is a great song. I mean, I think they could have went with anything. And by the way, Don't Turn Your Back would have been my fifth single. But
Don't Turn Your Back for me would have been the first single. Only because I think with this album, the people who loved Sheena in the past knew it was her vocals, the belting, and to start out with Do It For Love, I think it just completely took a nosedive for that. But Don't Turn Your Back would have kept the fans going that really loved her singing. That would have been my first choice. Young Lions would have been my second because of the catchiness, the guy singing in the background. It gave me that Duran Duran kind of feel. I think that would have been great. And it was kind of like the Thompson twins were out, and I think that look with a great video would have been fantastic.
I always thought it was a little bit Kids in America.
Or Kids in America, yeah, that's even, Kim Wilde was great, Don't Break My Heart would have been my third choice. Not my favorite, because it gave me like a little New Edition kind of, I don't know, when I was listening to it at the end, and I wasn't crazy about it, but it had her vocals, which I loved. She was belting it out. And then Money Back Guarantee, I would have did as a...
Money Back Guarantee is great, isn't it?
Money Back Guarantee is my throwaway track. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I would have been like, yeah, let's record something else.
But Don't Break My Heart sounds so like kids bop. It just was like, I don't know. I just feel like it wouldn't have been a great single.
Oh, I think the chorus is all hooks and like, I think that would have just got stuck in everyone's head. But I do see there's something that would have been really, to sometimes you come out with such a different sound, like Don't Break Your Heart. Don't Turn Your Back. Yeah. Would have been one of those songs that may have been such a shock because that vocal on the verses especially is so tough and soulful for Sheena that it might have been just like, holy shit. And, it might have just been something that got a lot of attention. So maybe that would have been a fine choice as a lead-off single as well.
Yeah.
I could even think that, actually, Money Back Guarantee, I think, would really jump out of radio. That bit, when I was going through, interestingly, a little side thing, is that when I was going through the vaults and finding it, some of the earlier versions of Money Back Guarantee didn't have that beginning part, which is that choral section.
If you take some love from me.
Yeah, that I think that was added later. So there are earlier versions where it doesn't begin with that.
Okay.
On the single edit of Money Back Guarantee, when it was released, it was a B-side.
Yeah.
On that 2 CD. That doesn't have it. So I think that it was a sort of later addition. Because to me, that really kind of grabs your attention straight away. It's very chic.
Yeah, that's
right. Exactly. It was
that in the third verse. I love her vocal on the third verse of that when she slips into the falsetto.
I was just going to say it's interesting. The 2 tracks, or just picking up on your point about Magic of Love. Yeah, that was interesting because there were 2 single edits done. The one that was unreleased, which I put on here, which is longer and has that bit. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. They made another single edit and chose not to release it. How strange. Which you don't often see. But it's interesting that the 2 tracks, which I think everyone agrees are great. Well, there's many great songs, but 2 of the strongest tracks on the album are undeniably Magic of Love and Don't Turn Your Back. And those are the songs that Nile wrote specifically for the project.
Yes,
that's right.
Because there was a time when, if Nile was doing an album with someone, or rather Chic, I should say, back when Chic were doing it, Nile and Bernard together were doing it, they would write all the tracks. They would write all the songs for Sister Sledge, or they would write all the songs for Diana Ross. By the time that Nile had gone, Chic had broken up, and Nile was doing these albums for people like Madonna and
Duran Duran,
the Thompson twins, and loads of them, loads of other people to come. He rarely wrote all the songs, or any sometimes. So it's interesting that on this record he found time to write 2 songs, not the whole album, but those 2 songs, which are 2. Sorry, I'm wrong. Not Don't Turn Your Back. Forget me what I said. Money Back Guarantee.
Yeah.
back. I've got back.
A lot of backs.
Yeah.
Money Back Guarantee and Money Magic of Love. And I was interested. I found a quote from Sheena at the time, which I thought was really interesting. Was that Magic of Love was her favorite track on the album.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it, and she wanted they got to the point where they had found most of the songs and wanted another mood. And there was a particular mood they wanted that she wanted on the album she hadn't found. And she talked to Nile about it, and he came back and said, I'll write the song. And came back a day later with Magic of Love.
Wow.
That happened, and that hadn't ever happened before for her.
That's fabulous.
Because I think, on the albums going back to Christopher Neal days and so on, songs would come in from different writers, and the producer would choose some, and she would choose some. But this was a situation where someone actually kind of wrote a song for her in the moment, sort of thing.
Right. It
was a new
That's
thing.
Great.
Great explain. I loved it so much.
Oddly, none of us picked Jimmy Mac as a single choice.
Yes. I was just going to say that. I understood again, this is the pre-testing, like right now, the listeners, music fans make choices by what they stream. Mm-hmm. And then the record companies just follow that. Right. So you get an immediate reaction by, oh, look, the album came out and this song is the one that's getting streamed the most. And they didn't have that back then. So you had these guys in suits who, think they knew the audience and they knew what the decisions were going to be. And so I think they panicked when Do It For Love didn't get top 10, made top 30. And then they played it safe with Jimmy Mac, which was a great production, great vocal, great song.
The video.
Not indicative, great video, but not indicative of the sound of the album. It was like, let's try to get, her adult contemporary bass by doing this cover of, a Motown song.
When I spoke to Greg Matheson, who produced Private Heaven and most of, over half of Best Kept Secret, he was expecting to be asked back. Just had a platinum album with someone
right.
And I can understand why you would be, that would be upsetting not to be.
Yeah.
But I can also understand why people like to keep moving, You do, big artists do. They don't necessarily, whether it's Diana Ross or whether it's Madonna or whether it's, name anyone. You keep moving and you keep moving your sound on because you keep you interested and you keep your look, your sound different, your image different. Yeah. And so for Sheena to move to Nile made sense. And EMI obviously wanted to keep things going. And you can see that in the investment in the videos, those 3 videos they made for the 3 singles are clearly the biggest budget, highest production videos that Sheena had ever had. So EMI were behind it in that way. Obviously, given her deal, it would end up being Sheena that paid for it, to be honest. But because it all gets recouped. But still, that they, pushed some effort into it. There was commitment there to try and make it. But I think maybe by the time the second Jimmy Mac didn't improve on the success of Do It For Love. But like we were saying, by the time of Magic of Love, it really the muscle,
lost it. And speaking of the videos too, I think, Chris, we had a couple of questions because I know we have a lot of fan questions too. Especially, I believe Jimmy Mac was so much more high polished than Do It For Love was. But I think you had a couple of questions, Chris, on your end.
Yeah, right? A question. Well, I have questions from 2 people about the same video, so I'll read them. This is from Kay Bolin. And Kay said his question would be about the Do It For Love video. Is it true that 2 versions were out there? Because I once saw a scene where Sheena and Billy Zane were intensively kissing at the end of it. I know they were romantically kissing in the Magic of Love video as well. And then the other question was similar, and that was from, hold on one second. This question is from Gary Hetherington, and Hetherington. Sorry, Gary. And he said he has a question regarding the Do You release. His question concerns the Do It For Love promo video. There was a second video shot, or at least a clip with the storyline, rather than just a performance piece. This was seen on Entertainment Tonight. Mm-hmm. The clip from around the time showed Sheena filming scenes outside. I wonder if Adam knows anything about that version of the video, and if so, whether it will make an appearance in the forthcoming, and he puts in parentheses, when, box set.
But you know what? I have to say, I did see that Entertainment Tonight episode, and it was a different setting altogether. I think he was a thief or something, or Billy Zane.
Different storyline.
Yeah.
From what I have gathered, I haven't seen. Yes, there is 2 videos. It's a short answer. Yeah, there were 2 videos cut. How different they are, I don't know, because I haven't seen the second. But I do know that in the Vault research I've done for it, there are different sources marked number 1 and number 2. So yes, and so ideally, so in an ideal world, if it's all recoverable, and there's work being done at the moment on that side of things.
Oh,
side of things.
That's exciting.
Inclusion in the forthcoming box set. It's taking a long time to find stuff that work when you've got sources that are nearly 40 years old.
Yeah.
Well, 39 years old actually, isn't it? So it's like,
oh my God.
It can get a bit tricky, and sometimes things have corrupted, aren't usable, and then you've also got to get clearances, and there's a whole bunch of hoops to jump through. But yeah, there were 2. And I believe there was, and I did hear that there was a making, and I searched, I can't find any making of, but obviously it was a TV clip done.
Yeah, I could send you the Entertainment Tonight clip. She's outside, and she says there's a storyline of her being a young, funky, tough chick, and her boyfriend's getting into some shady dealings, and she talks about the dramatic side of it.
Yeah.
It sounds like they may have shot the videos, and then they also, when they shoot that storyline video, they also want some performance pieces from that. So they shot a performance piece of her in a club, and then when they did the final edits, they must have decided that the storyline was not working. Mm-hmm. And so they just opted to just have a performance video.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see that video, because obviously they made a bad choice with the first single. The other video is probably good too.
Well, you know that something's up, because if you look at the performance video, the video for Do It for Love, Sheena is so angry when she's singing towards the end of that song, and she's looking at this guy, and you don't know what she's so angry about.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that there's something we're missing. There's a guy at the bar. She's looking at him, and is she mad because he's not paying attention to her? It's a weird, video. But so,
and that was the time. 85 was that almost at the peak, I think, of when videos are being made that were like videos because of Thriller, I guess.
Yes.
Turning point. That people were making these sort of big budget videos where there was a story, and there was a dialogue at the beginning, and then they do a big routine, and then there's some other little clip at the end. Wow, there's so many. Like Hello by Lionel Richie.
Yes,
right.
Or what was the other one? The Eurythmics. Would I Lie to You? There's loads of them, and so it was very much in keeping with that to have a Hollywood. I mean, he wasn't a huge star at the time, but he was a rising star, Billy Zane, and to do that whole treatment. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Those 2 videos, incidentally, the first 2 videos were directed by Ed for Do It for Love and Jimmy Mack, were directed by Ed Grills.
Yeah.
Who I was in a good interview, but I didn't get hold of him. I couldn't get hold of him. He had done Time After Time for Cyndi Lauper.
Yes.
And the third video, the Magic of Love video, was done by Steve Barron, who had done Billie Jean, Michael Jackson.
And Telephone, and I think
Telephone, he'd worked with her on Telephone. And I
think he did the Private Heaven videos too, right?
Did he? I
thought he did those as well. Maybe not.
Maybe he did. I don't know. I know he definitely did, like you say, Telephone, and he did Ice Out in the Rain.
The Private Heaven videos were shot for a Cinemax show called Album Flash.
I watched that.
It was a smart business deal, because what typically the budgets for music videos come out of advances for the artist, and then they get those back when they get the sales. So if they don't get the sales, then the record company eats up those budgets. But when it was a smart deal, because Cinemax paid for the budget of those videos so that they could show them on their TV show. And now that's a cost. And I believe these 3 videos, I remember Cinemax, that series was continuing. They had a deal to produce another album flash for the Do You videos. So I think some of that was absorbed by that. It never aired, but I think that there was an agreement. So I think that may be also why the budgets were a little higher for those particular videos.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, could be. Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So certainly all the parts were, the album that they delivered, that Nile and Sheena delivered, and the videos that were being made, everything was there for it to work. But and it did work to an extent, but it didn't it didn't match or exceed Private Heaven.
You said something, and I know I mentioned this before, that in another interview that we did, another podcast, Sheena was on Soul Train, and when he asked her about the next album, she said Greg Matheson will probably produce the next one.
Yeah.
And I don't think she knew at that time whether or not he would, but I think that was going to be the path. And then I think, how can you not work with Nile Rodgers at that time? So I think Sheena, from the liner notes that Adam gave, Sheena picked up the phone and called Nile and wasn't expecting him to accept the offer, but he did. And because she was saying, at that time, Madonna was going into the 5th million of her Like a Virgin album. David Bowie had this huge album, loved with him. And then Duran. She's like, everyone was wanting to work with him. So she didn't expect him to say yes. So I think she just took her shot. She got him. Yeah. And how do you not work with someone who's had such creative and, success? Success. So I think it was, a no-brainer. You had to do that. Regardless of your success with the last album with a certain producer. But, and I'm glad they did, because it's a completely different sound, and one that, we're still enjoying almost 40 years later.
Well, on that, Greg Matheson, when I was putting together Private Heaven Deluxe, and I spoke to him, that song, Have You Ever Been in Love? That song was done during those sessions and held for the next album. That was like, if at that point he definitely thought that we'll do it for the next album. There wasn't any. I don't think for him, from his point of view, at that point anyway, it was like, well, of course we're going to do another album together.
So I bet the track that's on there as well, "In It to Win It," I guess that would have been something that was considered for the new one.
Could well
too.
be. Yeah. To be honest, Greg couldn't remember with that. So I was like, did you ever record a vocal? Did you ever record a vocal? And since then, actually, in my desperate search to see, he couldn't remember recording a vocal, but he wasn't sure. And since then, I've literally had every single tape I can find of "In It for Win It" transferred, and it is a vocal.
Not bad.
No.
I go, oh my God, I want to hear that. I was like, I want to hear this song.
Me too. It's a great session. I love it.
It never was. It appears there never was. So yes, they were thinking ahead at that point for another album, which didn't happen. But yeah, like you say, the Nile, it made sense for her to do for Nile. And it was, like you say, Madonna was a thing that was, at the time when the decision was made to go with Madonna's Like a Prayer album, Like a Virgin.
Like a Virgin, yeah.
Virgin. But the album that Sheena, in the interviews that I read and included quotes from, which I thought was interesting, it was really the David Bowie album. Is it Bowie or Bowie? I always get that confused.
Bowie?
Bowie, yeah.
Bowie, like a knife. Her first album was the first album she ever bought was a David Bowie.
Yeah, Ziggy Stardust. Yeah,
Ziggy Stardust, right? And she loved Let's Dance. What a great
album. Yeah, that was. Oh, that's what I mean. It was a great album. Yeah.
Yeah. And you hear that song like "Let's Dance Now," and it still sounds really
fresh. And China Girl, Modern Love. That album was exceptional.
Yeah, amazing. And Nile Rodgers' track record, but also what people do forget sometimes is that you remember the huge successes that Nile had, and there were many, and there were loads, but there were also other albums and stuff.
Debbie Harry
that didn't. Yes, like the Debbie Harry album,
which that had some great songs too. Backfired. I mean, that's The Jam is
Moving. I love that song.
What a song.
Yeah. The Jam is Moving. That was another one that was
amazing.
Really great songs.
But not every single thing that Nile was connected to was
No.
automatically a multi-platinum album.
No. So we have to say that the fans, the Sheena Easton fans, have been so excited for the release of these two. And I think because of the Uncut sessions as well, and just having this in a box set form, they have been sending us so many letters, questions, and we have one now from Mark. And he said there are so many tracks that you had mentioned on our podcast before that were recorded after Do You. And they're aware there are many tracks that were initially recorded, and then the album shifted gears to become No Sound But a Heart.
Yes.
He said, with a great amount of unreleased tracks, why has Cherry Red only announced a vinyl edition of No Sound But a Heart and not a deluxe edition? What can you say yet?
What can I say? Well, those things exist, but getting to the point where everything can be released and cleared and approved and found is another thing.
Okay.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
So are we expecting something in the future
Hope
after?
so. Yeah. Fingers crossed everything will. As I've said, whenever these questions come up, is that like the idea is to get everything out eventually. Yeah. So just because like in a particular format now doesn't mean that means that that will never come, that won't come out. And as I've mentioned a few times, I'm not I don't really like to talk about it because people then think like, oh, why isn't it coming out next week?
Right.
But everything is various things are being worked on and found and try to get everything released in the best way and the most, will happen.
So then like the Spanish album too, that'll all be released on CD possibly. And
the plan is for everything to come out eventually, and there'll be the box, for there's forthcoming stuff that I'm working on.
Okay, now we have another great.
Just be patient and leave poor Adam alone in the comments because I know.
But they know, Chris, that when Adam comes on here, he's chock full of information.
I know, but I see these. It's like, first of all, I just want to say, Adam, I'm always just. Every time I get a new release with this remastered sounds and the liner notes, I'm like, how lucky are we to have someone like Adam in charge of this and just taking the time and care
beyond
find this. This really was the last opportunity for something like this to happen. And I'm so glad it's been in your hands because you're obviously a fan and care about the quality. You can tell it's not just hastily put together. And so I get a little defensive when I see, there's a vinyl of No Sound But a Heart. And then I see in the comments, people, most people are like just so excited, but there's always a couple that are just like, well, it would have been better if we had, everyone needs to just chill.
It will happen. But
Adam's doing the best he can. He's going to try his hardest to get everything out in a spectacular fashion. So everyone just be patient and be thankful for even just what we've had. It's amazing.
All right, the gig is up. It's really me asking the questions. I just changed to protect the innocent.
It would have been very easy and there wouldn't have been anyone saying don't do it. In fact, it would have probably been kept many people happy just to put it all out very quickly.
Right.
Could have done. I mean, literally, we could have put like everything out immediately and just put out the stuff that's already been put out.
Right.
And not put the effort into finding the mixes, the uncut stuff, like this stuff, like the Do You stuff. That took years. Took years, really. Going in and getting the finding the people and the connections and to get the stuff and that took a long time. I think maybe the misconception is it's not like you go and there's like a shelf and it says here it all is and you just press a button. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You've got
it's a lot of work.
You've got to get with a clear. You've got to do this, do that. They aren't. Some don't work. Corrupted. It's a big thing. So that's why, like, say when I think EMI was it EMI? EMI put a box out of like 5 albums in the bare bones way. That's easy to do, and that could have been done the month after we did the deal, and get it out that way. And maybe people would be happy with that.
No, I wouldn't have.
But really, to do it, like you say, this is the last chance. I don't know if this will ever happen again.
Right.
I doubt it. And you can see by the way that some other catalogs of artists, like from a similar era, sometimes get treated.
Yeah. I know. I see a lot of them over Olivia Newton-John. A lot of them were saying they wish your hands were in it, and that you had your hands in all the, because there's so much Olivia Newton-John stuff out there. I'm sure that's never been released.
Yeah, and it's not just. I mean, just getting sometimes on these releases, people don't even, just have the album and don't bother with the single edits or the 12 versions. So there's that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to get hold of, really, to be honest. But depending on who you're dealing with and how, at the bare minimum. But getting stuff that's never been released or mixes that have never been heard, that's not easy. It really isn't. I got to say, it's not as straightforward as maybe.
I think the fans are like back in the day, like we were, Chris. When you know something's coming out and you're like, when is it coming out? And they're anxious and they're going back to that time again, where they're getting excited that there's some material that they haven't heard before. And I get that totally. But you're working so hard on this, Adam, and what you're putting out is even better than the original, by far. Thank you.
And I like the reason that anything, it's just it's trying to get everything at the best quality level as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what takes the time.
Well, that's the beauty part of it. The stories and the pictures that we're not used to seeing, right? The high quality pictures and the stories that you're going back and interviewing people is just so fascinating, because you're going back to when you first purchased the album.
Some of the people that I've interviewed I was lucky that managed to get hold of quite a lot of people. There were some songwriters that I just tried a million different ways to find them. I just couldn't get them. I really wanted to interview Larry Natched, who wrote Kisses. I love that song, but I just couldn't find him. Yeah. But I did get to interview, I mentioned already Junior and Adele Bataille. I did interview Charlie Midnight, who wrote When the Lightning Strikes Again. Charlie Midnight, if you look up his credits, my God.
Well,
he was the writing partner with Dan Hartman, and obviously I Can Dream About You was the big hit right before this album came out.
Yes. And that's right. Dan Hartman his career had revived with I Can Dream About You.
Yeah.
And the two of them started writing together, Charlie Midnight and Dan Hartman, and they wrote a huge hit for James Brown called "Living in America." And so they did when Lightning Strikes Again. I mean, he was great to talk to, and he was like, that's a great song, when Lightning Strikes Again. And then also another person I spoke to who was fantastic was Mary.
I know who you mean. Yeah.
And she was really so enamored of Sheena's ability as a vocalist. She'd started writing in the 60s for people like Dusty Springfield, and she loved those kind of, for a better word, white soul singers, really. Soulful,
blue-eyed.
Blue-eyed. It's a good, blue-eyed soul singers. She'd done a song for Dusty. She'd written for Rita Coolidge.
Yeah.
Who was the other person? Was it Lulu? But she didn't mention Lulu. I spoke to her. But she'd written for Karen Carpenter.
Wow.
So she was, and she was really excited about when the word went out that Nile was looking for these kind of songs. And interesting that Sheena talked about as well in one of the interviews, I think with Cashbox, that they very much put the word out. Publishers put the word out that they wanted the direction they were going in for Do You, this dancey pop thing. So it was Mary who wrote Don't Break My Heart with her partner at the time, Danny Ironstone, his name.
Yes.
But also Tony Maiden. And Tony Maiden was the guitarist in Rufus, so he brought that real R&B flavor to Don't Break My Heart. So it's really interesting talking to the songwriters, because you get this sort of insight to what the context of the time and what was going on. It's really
right. I've been trying to get Regina on Loose Lips.
Wow!
I've been emailing, persistent, flashing her outside her window, nothing. She ain't responding. Well, hopefully I'll get her.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I should mention, which we didn't talk about, which is also interesting, and I see questions about it sometimes online.
Yeah.
Was when I found the uncut versions, I also found the TV mixes. And TV mix is a word that you don't. It's a bit more of an industry-facing term. Sometimes things are released as TV mix, but not often. So I kept that name, TV Mix. There was some discussion about it, thinking about, should I call them something else? But
no, that's good you did. Yeah.
So basically, what they would do often in the studio is you'd cut a version. There'll be an album version. Sometimes they'd make a single edit, if it potentially would be a single. Sometimes they'd do an instrumental, and sometimes they prepare as well what they'd call a TV mix. TV mix being not the same as an instrumental, so it retains the backing vocals. And so when you so that if they were performing on TV, they have a backing track with backing vocals, and Sheena could sing her lead. Hence why it's called TV mix. Yeah. Slightly different from a dub. A dub sometimes implies. Dub can sometimes they're interchangeable, but a dub sometimes has more effects and
yeah. Dubs were usually used for remixers. They'd have two turntables, and they'd be able to. They do special effects in the dub mixes so that they could mix them in with the regular version.
Yes. And sometimes these words are mixed around. Sometimes people call it instrument, but those are essentially what they are. The TV mixes, so the TV mix that are included on here, on the 2 CD version, you know, you really, what I love about them is you can really hear Sheena's background.
I love that.
And you really like, oh, wow, I'd never heard that part before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like on When the Lightning Strikes Again in particular, and Magic of Love as well. You can really hear those parts. It's like just really, you know. So it's made sense for me to include them. So
yeah, I'm glad you did. But we have another question. This one's from Robert. This is a great question. So he's wondering if these new remastered from the original recording releases will replace the versions that are streaming currently on music apps. So, like,
yeah,
I guess, like
the big question about when these will get onto streaming. I always see that in the comments,
or replacing the ones that are there now. Like, if say Do You's on there, will they replace the one that's there?
Will they replace it? Well, that's not really in. I don't really have any involvement with that, because what I do for the label for Cherry Pop, doing the imprint, is all do the physical releases. Vinyl and CD. In terms of streaming, that's not really controlled by anything to do with me.
Yeah, that would be a question for RT Industries.
But how great that they put all those other ones on, like from the Private Heaven sessions. They were all on streaming.
Yeah, they did a real intensive job for Private Heaven. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I imagine
fabulous.
Yeah, they did those little mini EPs and stuff. It was cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Adam. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
I am so excited. You did
always a bang up job, Adam.
Epic. This is one of my favorites, and I'm so glad that you told me I have the CD. I was like, oh God, so happy. And we want to give a shout out to Cherry Pop and RT Industries too, who work with Adam and get all this great Sheena stuff back out to us again with bonus and uncut versions of the songs, and so many people to thank. I want to go ahead, Chris, pull up the CD.
It's like a little novel.
You
guys are gonna love it. I always say these are like behind the music, documentaries,
the interviews and everything, that the gold mines you're finding for the Sheena fans. And we want to give a shout out to the World of Sheena Easton too, who posts everything about the re-releases. They mention you all the time, and Loose Lips. So shout out to them. And oh my God, I can't wait for you to come back again, Adam.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe, like I said, I can't believe it's 9 times. So
9 times. I feel like we got to give you an award.
Well, the 10th episode will be a celebration for sure.
Okay, we'll have a cake.
Well, yes, we will. We'll have a. Well, I'm on a diet, but I'll pretend to eat it. Oh God! But so the next stop is the vinyl for No Sound But a Heart.
That's right. Yes.
Right, and the date for that is
November.
Okay. Ooh, right by the holidays.
It's November 22nd. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it got confirmed in the last week, the date.
And
it got announced like yesterday. So yeah.
And everyone's excited about the 12-inch version of No Ordinary Love.
That's right. Yeah. So I can say that, this week actually I was choosing the exact shade of vinyl, but the exact shade of purple vinyl will be.
Ooh.
It's easy because because different colors. Because that's a whole thing as well. Getting the right shade. Anyway, I won't go into that. But yeah, there's a 12-inch version of No Ordinary Love.
I love that song. That's one of my favorites on that album.
A great song.
Does it have additional vocals?
Yes. Doesn't it? Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God. The gay in me just came out. Oh my gosh, hearing that live back in '89 was one of the highlights.
Oh wow.
Oh.
I guess he must have been thinking that was going to be a single.
No, I think at that point she was on MCA. I think she just loved that song, so she included it on her Lover and Me tour. Even though it wasn't released here, she was still singing that song. And she was also singing
Still Willing to Try.
Still in Love.
Yeah, Still in Love. That's it.
Love. Oh God, yes. I've got great stories about these things, but I'm not going to tell them now. But, I meant the fact they had done 12. They prepared a 12-inch of No Ordinary Love at one point.
Oh yes, yeah. They must have been. You're right.
Someone thought it could be, but I don't know. There's a whole other thing with that. The whole recording of that, sessions for that. There's the whole thing. So let's get into that another time.
Well, thank you again. We appreciate you more than you can even imagine. And of course, Sheena says hello.
Adam, you're the best.
You are.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you. And tell everybody where they could find the the CD and the vinyl, where they can get that.
Well, it'll be on. I guess the most direct way to get it would be from the Cherry Red, website. You can do that, or it's available on Amazon. Or I guess those are the two main ways.
Yes, and it was just released yesterday. Go out and get it. Thank Adam as much as you can online for re-releasing all these gold mines of Sheena. Adam, we love you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you so much.
This is where we wave goodbye.
Bye. See you next time.